So what are your plans for this Sunday? Where are you going to be watching from?
I go to Turn 3 infield every year. So I have as I've gotten older, I've I'm not really that ashamed, but I was going to say I'm ashamed to admit that I've eased off the partying scene a little bit. But Turn 3 infield is the one that gets the most
pit?
wild. I can't do the snake pit.
Have you ever done the snake pit?
No, actually. So the snake pit is, for me, everyone has their own opinions, and I love the people at IMS, and I love the idea of the snake pit and all that thing. The snake pit was an organic thing that came about because it was the debauchery going on in Turn 3 was just labeled the snake. It was just like this is such a scene. It was like the people that went to Turn 3 were like the others, and like the people that enjoyed the race were enjoying the race. But if you wanted just like an absolute shit show, it was Turn 3. It got nicknamed the Snake Pit along the way, and then somewhere along the line, the track itself said, like the suits at the track said, we have to kind of how do we discourage the insanity going, and I'm talking like anything you can imagine was going on in there. Any drug you can imagine, it was wild mayhem. They were like, we have to tone this down a little bit, but also if you ask them to tone it down, that's going to backfire.
Right.
So what happened was they created the snake pit themselves, and they created this like area to have like DJs come and play. And
they moved it to the infield. Is that right?
And it basically, from my perspective, there's a feeling of like you're having a party in your basement in high school, and your parents come down with a case of beer, and they're like, "What's up, guys?
Yeah.
You guys want to drink some beer?" And we're like, "Well, I did."
That takes the fun out of it.
Until mom and dad came down and said, "Have some beer, guys. We're cool parents." And I was like, "All right, well now." So there's still parties that go on in Turn 3. It's still an awesome scene. But the quote unquote snake pit itself, the corporate part where you have to buy a ticket to watch. I think Shaq's actually doing DJing.
Yeah, I think he is
this year. I don't go to that. I don't go. Because also you can't really watch the race from there, and I do care about the race.
Yeah.
So I put on the headphones. I bring
you
a
rent
cooler
a headset.
Yeah, I got I own one.
Oh no! He's about it.
I take my set, my radio. I will sit in a full, like a little folding chair, like sit around a campfire, like take one of those chairs. Cooler beer. I used to take like a big cooler. Used to do like a 30 rack maybe. I didn't probably drink them all, but I like to think that I did. Definitely didn't, but that's the stories I tell. Now it's like 12. It's like 6 to 12. That's all. And I just kind of nurse them a little bit.
That's still pretty good.
But it's a great experience because I you can come next year. Next year I will. Anybody that wants, you guys can all come. Everybody.
That
would
be awesome.
If
we'll do a double. We'll go.
You want to do the double duty?
That would be something.
Dude, we could do. Kyle Larson's doing it next year.
Yeah, let's get on. I'll try to talk to Kyle and see if I can get us a couple seats on his jet.
Those PJ.
Can you imagine?
That was one of the coolest things too. That I think that's gonna be awesome when he does that next year. Because that's something that I always that might have been why I never felt like there was like a rivalry or anything else with racing, is because when I was growing up and like when I was coming of age and everything, like in the 90s and early 2000s, Robbie Gordon and Tony Stewart were the two big guys that did it all the time. But they would do both, and it was like the coolest thing ever to think a guy's doing 500 miles in this type of car at the Indy 500, jumping in a helicopter, flying to the airport to then fly to North Carolina to then run 600 miles.
It's crazy.
At a stock car. It was crazy, and it was Tony Stewart one year. I think it was 01. He didn't almost win both of them, but it was like shit. Like he got like I think like 5th or 6th in Indy, and he got like top 5 at the Coca Cola 600. And I was like, that might be the greatest athletic achievement I've ever seen.
That's everything involved, even the logistics that go into that. As someone that kind of does travel and whatnot, that's very impressive.
But you're just seeing it from like a pure logistics.
The pilots,
never mind the endurance. You're just like, how do you
across the board
coordinate that? That's crazy.
But no, I think you're right. I think you take after the drivers. To me, the driver's interest in wanting to do both and run all these sort of different factions of racing is a testament to how much you should appreciate just the whole kind of sport that is racing.
So Kyle Larson is doing the double next year. Connor Daly, I know he's
the hometown favorite.
He's
right?
the hometown guy for the Indy 500. So I looked this up one time, and I think it was I want to say it was Wilbur Shaw in like 1940 was the last time a Hoosier won the Indy 500. So this is something that and like really me alone, because I every time I point this out to somebody, they're like, what's the one thing you want to see in sports? I'm like, a Hoosier win the 500. And they're like, all right, so what's the other one thing you want to see? You know, like, that's never an acceptable answer to do. But I would love to see that. Connor Daly was leading laps last year, and the place went bananas.
I remember that.
Yeah.
If Connor Daly had
cool.
like the fire suit that had the pinstripe Indiana pants, that would be incredible.
He said he's trying to. I saw that he wants to do the Daytona 500 next year too. And I think all these instances of guys doing this is great for both sports. I think so. The history. I don't know if you care about this, but maybe my listeners do. Not IndyCar, open wheel racing was bigger than NASCAR in like the 70s and 80s and stuff. And NASCAR was like a regional southern thing. And as far as like the entire country, if there was one racing series that the entire country cared about, it was more open wheel than NASCAR. And the reason NASCAR became so huge, beyond like NASCAR being smart, and you know, like NASCAR is great, and NASCAR would have become huge anyway. But there was a split in the 90s with open wheel racing, because the guy who owned Indianapolis Motor Speedway knew how much leverage he had by having like the biggest race. And so he was trying to like get the rest of the league, what do you call it? The federate, all the tracks. He was trying to like cater it more to his one. Like he was trying to be. He's like, I'm the big dog. We're the main attraction. He wanted more ovals in the race because they were doing a lot of road courses. He was like, to hell with that. We should be an oval series where it all leads up to the Indy 500, and this is like how it's structured. And everyone's like, why would we do that? That's not like what we do. So it was just like a big political thing where like he's putting his foot down, saying like, we're the Indy 500 runs everything. You should listen to me. Everyone else is like, we're not going to listen to you. Another thing he wanted to do was, if I remember right, was like have basically all Americans in the series. So like open wheel racing, obviously with Formula One and like all the there's open wheel guys all over the world love open wheel racing. And the league that they were running had too many foreign guys in his mind. And he's like, if you want to get people to care about this in America, let's just get some Americans.
Yeah.
And everyone else was like, why would we do that? Like, we have a great thing going. Long story short, he basically takes his ball and goes home and says, fuck all of you. If you don't do it my way, none of you get to come to the Indy 500.
My way or the highway.
So they all formed their own thing, competed directly with the Indy 500. And then in 1996, that was the first race at the 500 with the split, and basically all the best drivers were in Michigan on that day racing a completely different race, and it was like all the B team guys were at Indy, and it was like, I mean, it was still fun, but like people were just like, what the hell is going on?
Tour.
It was like somehow Indy had become the Live Tour. And like, how is the greatest race in the world the Live Tour? And then in 1997, I remember it got rained out 2 days in a row, which I felt like was like some sort of omen of like God saying like, we got to figure this out.
Yeah, fix it.
So they raced it on Tuesday, and I remember my mom calling me out of school, and there was like, it felt like there was 1,000 people at the track on a Tuesday afternoon watching the race. But anyway, like that, and Indy Car and open wheel racing in this country took a massive hit in the 90s. And at the same time, you have Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt with their deal in the 90s, like the perfect rivalry. Because Gordon really was like Earnhardt was like the Southern representative, obviously. But as much as like Gordon was hated by the Southern guys, he did represent like an opening up of a new world to NASCAR, where it was like, you know, like that's a, because NASCAR was stereotypical to like people from the North and people from the West Coast and stuff. You're like, I don't want to watch those fucking rednecks like running. But now you have Jeff Gordon, who doesn't have a Southern accent and isn't talking about, you know, like doesn't feel like a good old boy from the South. And I think those two guys in relation, and also with the open wheel bullshit going on, NASCAR exploded, and IndyCar and the open wheel nonsense has been trying to catch up ever since. And I think now, not that it's a competition between the two, but I think like in the last 10 years or so, the Indy 500 especially, but IndyCar is like, the Indy 500 is back in a big way. They're saying, I saw the other day, they're anticipating 325,000 people at the race on Sunday. They think it's going to be like, and that warms my heart too, because there were times in the 90s where, you know, my dad would tell me like, this is the biggest deal in racing, Mark, and I would look around and be like, is it? I mean,
yeah.
You're pretty NASCAR looks cooler on TV, you know. Like, I mean, I'm watching TV. Daytona looks pretty sick, Dad. And he's like, no, this one's the biggest. So yeah. Anyway, that's maybe too much history, but
no, I mean that's Indy is beautiful.
So.
Do you have a pick for the Indy 500? And how about?
We got to talk about the Coca Cola 6. So the Indy 500, it's the top 10 right now in qualifying were from two teams. It was Chip Ganassi's team and it was McLaren. So Roger Penske, who owns the track, he also owns a lot of the race car. He's got a team himself. He's historically been the guy that, like, you know, if you want to bet on someone, bet on a Penske car.
He's the Bob Baffert of the
he kind of is. Roger Penske is like Bob Baffert. But this year doesn't feel like a Penske year. It feels like a Chip Ganassi year.
So Ross Chastain, who we were talking about before, actually used to race.
With Ganassi, right?
Yeah.
But Ganassi got out of NASCAR, didn't he?
He did, and Kyle spent a year out of the sport as well, but he came back to Hendrick Motorsport, an even better car. So now he's just winning everything.
But yeah, I think Ganassi has. Well, maybe him getting out of NASCAR is why. But like, because in the last couple of years, Ganassi won it last year with Marcus Ericsson, Indy 500, and this year Alex Palou's on the pole. I'm kind of a basic bitch. I probably do this with college basketball too. I mean, I literally picked Alabama to win the national championship. As it turns out, I'm just a basic bitch when I make predictions. But I feel like it does feel like an Alex Palou year because he's been knocking on the door. He's in a Chip Ganassi car. He's on the pole. Here's a stat for you, the Spider. Get people excited. I told TJ this last show. The 2021. This was only 2 years ago. Scott Dixon won the pole for the Indy 500. His time that he ran, the speed that he ran in qualifying in 2021 to win the pole, would have put him at 23rd to start this year's race. Exact same track, exact same area. We'd be 23rd.
They flying
They were
this year?
flying this year.
Why? Do you know why?
I don't really know. I'm not smart. That's where I'm only a 6th grade education. I can't
It's
get.
fucking wild.
It's wild, dude. They're going 234 average.
That is ridiculous.
Average. So that includes the braking into the turns.
That's crazy.
Averaging 234. But yeah, if you want to gamble on it, definitely do Ganassi or McLaren has never. McLaren technically won it in the 70s, I think, but it's like a different iteration of McLaren, and like this new iteration of McLaren has been trying to like really like the guy who runs the McLaren is the guy who is from what's the F1
Scott Brown.
No, Zach Brown. The F1 thing.
Drive to Survive.
Drive to Survive. Yeah. He's an American guy, and I think he wanted to get like he's using like Indy Car to identify like F1 drivers, and there's like sort of a symbiotic thing with him. But I think McLaren has been investing and focusing heavily on trying to win an Indy and trying to get some stuff going. So they're kind of like the new kid on the block, so to speak, which seems weird because McLaren as a racing brand is so iconic. Yeah. But like they've never actually won the race in this iteration. But the thing they say about the 500 is that the track picks the winner ultimately. That's what they always say. It's like it doesn't matter who's. Scott Dixon has won one race in his entire career, and he's led the most laps at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the history of the race. And every single year, Scott Dixon looks like he's driving a fucking thoroughbred, and then something happens.
Yeah,
something always happens. So, I would probably be a basic bitch and just take Alex Palou, but he's on the pole, and that's boring, and he's probably got the best odds. But
I'm taking Castroneves 40-1.
Castro, dude, Helio.
He's the man.
Why do I know that name?
Helio Castroneves?
Yeah.
He's won 4 Indy 500s, which is a record. He's tied the record.
Because I was looking at the odds, and that was the first name that I
also
truly
Of,
recognized.
like, racing
he also
stuff.
won it 2 years ago with sort of that was his version of Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl with the Bucks, where he's like, quote unquote, washed up. But isn't it cool that he's still around? And it's like, holy shit, did he just do this? You know,
maybe that's why. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was 2 years ago. It was a big deal that he won it, and he's beloved there too. So yeah, but that's Scott. I cheer for Scott Dixon and Tony Kanaan. Those are my favorite. Tony Kanaan, TK. Well, I guess Connor Daly, I should say.
Yeah, Daly.
But that's the thing, dude. All these guys, all the IndyCar guys are likable. There's like no one. There's no one that's really. They're all
pops
likable.
Out.
There's no villains in IndyCar. They need villains. They need.
Even that's probably harder in IndyCar. Like you said, open wheel. You can't really. It has to be like with your fist. You can't touch with cars. You know?
The closest thing I think is Graham Rahal, whose dad won the Indy 500, and I think he's my age. He didn't qualify this year, but then someone got hurt in practice, and he got back. He got back into the fold. I think he's the closest thing the IndyCar has to a villain. But
I love that.
You know, if I'm not taking Palou, that's let me look at the grid. Go. Let's talk about the Coca Cola. Oh, you got the grid in front of you?
Yeah, Coca Cola 600, the longest race on earth, 600-mile NASCAR race. I'm on 2 drivers. I got Martin Truex, who's 9-1, and I got Ross Chastain, who's 10-1. A lot of people are skeptical on Chastain for the reasons we outlined. He's a big villain. He's got a big target on his back. But I don't know. I'm of the opinion that he's going to get it done. He's a great driver, and he's without a win this year. So this is a great opportunity for him.
Who'd you say? Sorry.
Ross Chastain.
You're taking Ross Chastain?
10-1. And then Martin Truex is 9-1. Those are my 2 picks for
Who's
the
on
Coke
the pole?
600.
We don't know yet.
We don't know yet. Nope.
They don't do the because they do. When do they qualify?
Qualifying will be on Saturday, I believe.
Okay. Do they do that? They do that for every race. They qualify the night before.
Yeah,
or the day
pending
before.
that they can run it, or there's not weather or
Okay.
some sort of scheduling conflict. That's how they do it.
Yeah, it's wild that Indy. Like that's the thing with the 500 too. Is like the whole month of May is focused on winning one race. They bring in their whole teams the first week of May. They start working on the cars. They start testing them. It's a whole fucking thing. Qualifying is a full week before the race. It's crazy.
So,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna ask, like, aside from the Indy 500, what are the other like main events that really get you excited for open wheel, or
IndyCar?
whether it be F1 or Indy?
Well, this is the problem with the IndyCar is that they're really the second best race is like who even cares almost. But there are great races. Long Beach is fun. It's like a road course. Mid Ohio I used to go to when I lived in Ohio is a fun race. They do one in Detroit. I know that can be pretty fun. But like the problem that they will always have is that. Like NASCAR has this with Daytona, but NASCAR also has Talladega. You also have the Darlington. You have Coca Cola. Like there's Daytona, which is 1, but there's still like an obvious 2, 3, 4, like a 2A.
Crown jewel events.
Yeah. There's you can make a Mount Rushmore.
Right.
With IndyCar, I don't know what the Mount Rushmore is. I think it's just 4 Indy 500 heads on the Mount Rushmore, and then there are IndyCar people listening that are like pulling their hair out. They're like, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Obviously, the top 4 that But as a again like a guy with a 6th grade education on this stuff, it really is like. This one event swallows the entire sport, which is why this series is literally called IndyCar.
Yeah.
Imagine NASCAR was called Daytona Car.
Yeah. I mean, both the events, Indy 500, Daytona 500, are both like the Super Bowl of their respective sport.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Give me Takuma Sato.
Good pick. I think he's like the 3rd favorite to win.
Is he really?
Yeah, I think
that's
I
boring.
think it was 11-1. I think.
He won it a couple years ago, racing for David Letterman.
Yeah, Sato's 11-1 on the Barstool Sportsbook.
Sato is the guy that gets. He's the what are they saying? Wrecker or checker?
Checkers or
wreckers.
Yeah.
That's Sato, dude. Sato is insane. Where like if Sato has the faintest sniff of a win, he will just go balls to the wall and do whatever it takes to get his car across the finish line before everybody else. So I love watching him race. I'm looking at I like all these. This is the problem with Indy 500, dude. I honest to God, as I'm looking at it, I would make the cutoff point. I would say the top 7, and then you'd probably throw Pagenaud. Yeah, it would be 22. I think there are 22 cars that can win this race.
Simon Pagenaud, why is he 60-1?
Because he's just starting in row 8, dude. But like honestly, he could win it. That's what's crazy about Indy is like. It's not. You don't need like something crazy to happen either. It's not like you need a massive wreck or you need weather. You need like a timely caution flag. You probably do need a little. You definitely do need a little luck to win. But if you're starting in row 8, you're starting 22nd in this race. It's not like you need all the stars to align for you to win. If you just run a good race and your car is in a good spot, and you have quick pits, you can win the race.
Yeah.
And that's freaking crazy. At least for I don't know. That's not common in my opinion in racing. So, anyway, I feel like we could do this forever. Yeah, we haven't talked about F1 at all.
Do you have a pick for this weekend? How much do you follow F1?
Dude, I hate that I'm saying this because I don't want to be a hater, but I can't get into the racing. I try so. I'm so into the Netflix show. I'm so into the culture. I'm so into. The qualifying's fun. The engineering of it is fun. Like if you read about I will read an article about F1. I would rather read about like the engineering that goes into the cars than actually watch the race.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of with you. I'm not trying to be. I would probably power rank it NASCAR, IndyCar, F1 for me personally, but that's only because I feel like a lot of times the racing is determined like in qualifying. You
It
don't see
is,
many
dude. That's
passes on
what's-
the track under green flag.
I
and
know it sucks.
Like you, I prefer to watch the documentary and like the drama that follows the sport. But for whatever reason, when the race is on, it just doesn't do it for me.
I have a profound respect for it because I do. The engineering's insane, and I love and like we talked about at dinner, and we're talking about here. Like you put 4 wheels on something and a motor on it, I'm watching it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a chance. I'm gonna get into it. I'm gonna watch it. But yeah, just like not seeing any of the passing, and kind of having an idea who's going to win. And then the other part that makes it tough, like to follow, is the time. Like
the time.
The times.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
So it's like, do I want to wake up at 4
That's
a.m. to watch
arguably
0
the hardest
passes?
part. It's like
know?
you have to set your weekend schedule around when the F1 race is.
So when they're convenient, I will watch them. Monaco, though, is by far the
Yes.
worst race. How did this become the best race? That's so confusing. They're like, this is the biggest race on the calendar, but also it's the most boring. Like even people that love F1 are like, this is definitely the most boring race, but it's the biggest race, but it's the most boring.
It is an
Like,
interesting
what?
like dynamic because it's like so beautiful, it's so serene. The whole country gets up for it, and then you're right. It's probably not. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know which F1 races are the most exciting, but I would say you're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the what's the one they do in Germany? That one seems fun every year. I don't know enough about it.
No,
I just like I started watching some of those, but yeah, especially living in I live in LA, so like some of these when they're racing in Europe and like Asia or wherever the hell the time zones get really freaking crazy, and I'm waking up because I started doing that. Like my girlfriend and I would watch the series, and she was getting really into it. Her friends are into it, all that thing, and I'm like, I'll watch it with you, of course. I'll watch any sort of racing. And this was like a couple years ago. We were setting our alarm for like 3:30 a.m. to watch F1. And I was like, this is I don't know if I can continue
I'm
to
not
do
this
this
big
if
of a
like
fan.
yeah, if we get some passing.
Yeah.
That's all I want. I just want like one pass. I want one lead change. That's all I want. Out on the
That's why I
track,
love
one lead
NASCAR.
change.
It's so much parity. It's like
Also, it drives me bananas the teammate situation where like if your guy is winning. Now this happens in NASCAR. This will happen in any car from time to time.
the politics.
But I don't think it does not happen on this level. That like if the right guy is in first, then the second guy can't pass it. He's not allowed.
No, in NASCAR, if
that's
you're
not-
there at the end, fuck your teammate.
Fuck your
It's
teammate,
a
dude.
one. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's about you.
I love that. That's what it should be.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Should be. This was fun, man. We
I
should do this.
appreciate
We
it.
should do this for Daytona. We should do this more often, dude.
I'm
I
with it.
love talking
Anytime.
racing. No one thinks I'm serious when I want to talk about racing, and yeah, that's why
It's good to have
I'm glad we
fellow
found
people to
each
talk racing with.
what's your favorite NASCAR race that you've been to?
Probably one of the two that you said, Talladega or Daytona, only because I love super speedway racing. I know that
Yeah.
will probably be a hot button issue too. Some people prefer dirt racing, short track racing. I don't know. I like to see what the max that these cars are capable of and the pushing and the teamwork that goes into plate racing. So it would be Daytona or Talladega, and it all depends on what type of mood I'm in. If I want to see something like the Indy 500, the Super Bowl of NASCAR, the best
The
of the
event,
best,
yeah.
I'll watch the Daytona 500. If I want to party and get the snake
This-
pit vibe, I'll go to
You go to
Talladega
Talladega.
and chop it up on the boulevard with the gritty NASCAR fans.
I gotta get to Talladega. This is the start of a beautiful
I'm here for
friendship
it.
right
Thanks
here.
so much for having me, Mark.
We're gonna be doing. We gotta. You're coming to the Indy 500 next year, and I gotta get to Talladega. I went to Daytona last year. What was the one? Was it last year? The Bubba Wallace almost stole at the end.
Yeah, I think it was last year.
Yeah, and he was like a half car length. I forget.
He's such a good plate racer as well.
Yeah, that was awesome. But Daytona was so cool. Daytona objectively. Now I love the Indy 500. It's my number one sporting event in the world. I love it more than the NCAA tournament. Daytona objectively was a better viewing experience because like as much as I love IMS, the track is so big you can't see it all. But Daytona, I was like blown away. I was like, oh my god, I can just like sit up here and like see the whole track, and you're seeing the passing on the backstretch.
It's incredible.
I was like, this is perfect. This is. Anyway, we could talk for hours about this stuff, but Sunday, if you're so inclined, park your ass on the couch, man, and watch all the racing.
Get some
going on.
Stella Blue, get comfortable, watch all three.
Yeah.
F1, NASCAR, Indy Car.
Yeah, it's just the
Greatest
nice
spectacle in racing.
nice little build. And next year, we'll be there. We'll
The
be
Indy
there.
double.
We should do the double duty, man.
With Kyle
we
Larson.
should. Kyle, if you're listening, let us get on the PJ. We're gonna go to Indy 500. We're gonna jump on your PJ with you. We'll do a little behind the scenes thing. It started as a joke, and now I'm talking myself into like this is actually a genius idea to like Barstool to produce Kyle Larson behind the scenes of
That
the
would be
double
lit.
duty. That would be awesome. That
Kyle,
would be
let us
awesome.
know.
Let us know, Kyle.